Okay, so this is the official welcome to the Buddhist Winter School session number, I think 6 or 7, something like that. And I am, the original title for this was Start With Your Own Heart for this session. And as sometimes happens, I had prepared something. I don't always prepare something. I sometimes just go with the flow. I had prepared something, but then at the last minute, I decided that doesn't feel right. So I'm going to do something a little bit similar, but a little bit different. Excuse me, I had a little bit of a cold. So I want to talk about who you are, who we are in the ultimate sense, not in the sense of our personal identities, you know, who we think we are, the names we have, the labels we ascribe to ourselves, male, female, non-binary, trans, whatever, straight, gay, bisexual, poly, whatever, Australian, American, British, Irish, European, whatever, our thoughts, feelings, emotions, the sensations we have, the bodily history we have, the history of being in this body. I'm not talking about that. Those things are temporary, fleeting, and beautiful, definitely valuable, but they're not at all who you are or who we are truly in the absolute sense. So I want to talk a bit about Gaba or Buddha nature. This talk initially was meant to be about our true worth. And I mean, I could do this talk in a sentence. Our true worth, our true value is our Buddha nature. That's the talk done. But to convince you, I'll go over a little bit. And I will draw also on some actual masters rather than just little old me sitting here. So I'll talk. So I'll share some great teachings with you from actual real masters. So, but I want to start out by saying, in our nature, we are no different to the Buddha. So the phrase "in our nature," and we all probably have heard this so many times, but if we have any negative feeling about ourselves of any kind, we haven't taken that to heart. If we have any judgment about ourselves or others in any way, we haven't taken that to heart. It's impossible to have any kind of like positive, negative, feeling about others if we've accepted that in their nature they are the Buddha. It's impossible to have any sort of negative feeling about ourselves if we have accepted in our nature we are the same as the Buddha. There's no room for anything other than joy, love, compassion, and evenness or equanimity if we've accepted that. If we haven't accepted that, we judge ourselves and we judge others. We feel separate from others. We feel either superior or inferior or neutral towards others. And all of the things that torment us and ruin our lives rise from that lack of recognition. So all the nasty things: greed, jealousy, anger, hatred, misery, sadness, anxiety, panic, all of those rise from that misrecognition, from that failure to look to our true value, to look to what is actually real rather than constructed, fabricated, and illusory. All of our misery comes from not having accepted that, step one. Step two, encountered that in our practice. There's no other cause of misery. It's that is it. Grasping, self-clinging, all of that, which causes misery and suffering, arises from that lack of recognition. In the Tibetan tradition, I'm not sure if you're all what sorts of traditions we're in here. I think it's a mix. In the Tibetan tradition, we have a meditational deity or yidam that represents the part of ourselves that's always been in a state of recognition. There is a part of ourselves that's always been in a state of recognition, has never departed from that state of recognition of our true nature, never will, cannot. And the yidam or representation of that, we call that Samantabhadra and Samantabhadri together, actually. Union of Samantabhadra and Samantabhadri. That, I'll just talk about that yidam or meditational deity for a little bit. That, we don't need to do yidam practice necessarily. Just want to talk about it to give you some sense of what that means. That yidam deity, Samantabhadra and Samantabhadri in union, they've never been confused. They have never experienced suffering. That's what those yidams represent if we meditate on them, if we use them in our meditation. We're entering into that part of ourselves that's always been there, but is currently obscured, that recognizes our true value. Using all these words, we, our, etc. Of course, they're nonsense on a certain sort of level, because they point to what is fleeting, what is passing, what is fabricated, what is an imagining. It's a mirage on the horizon. It's no more substantial than that. But that true nature, our Buddha nature, that's unconditioned, which means it was never created, it was never born, and therefore cannot be diminished, cannot be stained, cannot pass away, is undying. That's where our true value is, in that nature. It's the same nature as the Buddha. So, given that there is a part of ourselves that already recognizes that, but it's buried, what can we do? How can we enter into that state of recognition and stay in that state of recognition? Entering into that state of recognition has a couple of stages which we give words to. First off, to really be confident in our Buddha nature is to be liberated from disturbing emotions. So that's what that word liberation means. To be liberated from disturbing emotions can only be done by accepting our true nature and also the true nature of all other beings. This has to happen together, and it does actually naturally happen together. When we see all beings, human beings, other animals, insects, birdies, as the Buddha, in their nature the Buddha, there's no negative experience with other beings. And if we see ourselves in the same way, whatever rises in the mind, whether that be labelled good, bad, or neutral, it doesn't shake that state of knowing what we really are, what all beings really are. So we're liberated from those things. If we're in a body, which of course we are, stuff will trigger sensations, feelings, emotions, and they will continue to rise in the mind with less frequency, but they will immediately dissolve in that state of knowing who we are. It's just like, it becomes just like something quite funny. this stuff just rises and it just passes, and it's kind of amusing and funny. So that's the first thing. If we have confidence, it's felt, but it's also at that point largely intellectual. You know, we just have confidence. We've read about Buddha nature, we've listened to actual masters, and we believe them. We have trust and confidence that they are telling us the truth. This is our ultimate nature. So we develop an intellectual confidence which becomes a felt confidence, and then disturbing emotions are liberated. It's not that they don't rise anymore, they just dissolve in and of themselves without any intervention, without any antidote being applied. That's the first thing that happens. When we become confident, we gain, the phrase I use is gain certainty, that in our nature, we are the Buddha, all sentient beings, every single one equal. Then the next step is what we call realization. It's an interesting word. And that simply means you've gone from intellectual certainty to a real lived experience of your nature. In meditation, whatever form of meditation you do, slowly, 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 all these adventitious thoughts, sensations, emotions settle, and already there, just waiting to be found, is our true nature, naked awareness, which has only a few qualities: love, compassion, joy, equanimity. It also is said to have things like stillness, clarity, and movement. But ultimately, it's the four immeasurables. So then we have realized our nature, right? So the emotions are already dissolving of their own accord. They just rise, pop like little bubbles, you know? Then when we actually have a really felt direct experience of our nature through the practice, that's called realization. And for the first period of time when that happens, people can be in and out of that state of recognition. And so then the practice is to learn to stabilize that. And then the final thing that happens is when, like the masters, they abide in that state all the time. They're there all the time. That's what we call enlightenment. So these three things, liberation, realization, enlightenment, they're all about Buddha nature. Recognizing Buddha nature, directly experiencing Buddha nature. So accepting first that it is true. Directly experiencing it in our meditation practice or whatever other practice we're doing. And thirdly, being so kind of immersed in the practice that that recognition becomes permanent, stable, and we're awakened, we're enlightened. So that's kind of an overview of, if you take your nature as the path, you know, what it will look like. First, come to an intellectual point of trust and confidence that this is true. Second, sit in meditation. Doesn't need to be any kind of fancy thing. In Tibetan Buddhism, we have all these hierarchies of practices, you know, but fundamentally, shamatha practice is the foundation, and it will naturally evolve into vipassana, insight, and then into other things. Naturally, it will evolve if the heart's in the right place. So really just start there with shamatha, and then over time, what becomes like glimpse of one's nature, which we can all glimpse right now just by sitting quietly and looking to the gap between what's going on in the mind. You know, we can all just, my cat does that. This is not a rarefied thing. You know, kitty cats look into the gap. You see them doing it. We can all do that too. Just look to the gap. It'll be very fleeting, very fast. We might not even recognize something there. If we just keep sitting, eventually that gap elongates and it becomes quite luminous. And then from there, magic happens.